Alright, so in the last video we set up our file structure for our little website here, and we created the nav bar and also styled it. So we have this nav bar at the top. The next thing we want to do is the showcase area, which is this right here, this background image, this text, this button here. So that's what we're going to move on to. So within the header, okay, so we have our header tag, we have the nav, and then under the nav is where we want to put our showcase. So I'm just going to use a div here, and I'm going to give it an ID of showcase. And inside here, we're going to want another container. So let me explain why we need this. If I stretch this out, if we don't put a container, our content is going to go all the way over here, just like you saw with the nav bar in the last video. So we don't want the container around the showcase, because then the image would be constricted, right? So we want the showcase to go all the way out, but we want the content inside to be within a container. So let's go ahead and add a class of container here. And then all of this stuff, the heading, button, paragraph, I'm going to put that inside of a class called, let's call it showcase dash content, because that's what it is. It's the content within the showcase. So inside here we have an H1 that says enjoy your stay. And then underneath that we have a paragraph, which I think it's 15. I'm just going to do lorem 15, enter. And then underneath that we have a link, and this is actually going to go to the about page, so about.html. And for the text we'll say about our hotel. Okay, so if we take a look, it should look like this. Now, there's a couple things that I left out here that we need to add. One, if you notice, the enjoy is a different color. So the way it is now, there's no way for us to actually target that, right? There's just this one word. Of course, we could make the H1 all that color, but I just want that one word. So what I'll do is surround that in a span, and I'm going to give it a class of text-primary. Just the enjoy. So this ending span, we want to cut that, and we want to put that right after enjoy, like that. And then this text primary, we'll style it to just have this color, and we can put that wherever we want. You can see down here the history also has that color, so we can use that same class down there. Another thing I want to do is add a class to the paragraph and call it lead, because it's bigger than the rest of the text, so it'll be just a larger font size. And then the link, obviously the link is formatted like a button, so let's give this a class as well of btn. And that should do it as far as the HTML. So let's save that, and let's go to our CSS. So let's go down below the nav bar, and let's add our styles for the showcase. Okay, so of course we want to style the actual showcase, which has an ID of showcase, I believe, right? Yep, right here. And that's what we want to add the background image to. So remember, background or background image, and we want to use URL, and then the image is located in, if we look at our file structure, it's located in this IMG folder. Now, since we're inside of the CSS folder, right, we're in the style sheet that's inside of the CSS folder, we can't do ./img/ and then the name. We have to do .. because we need to go outside of the CSS. So the double dot means that we're going outside of the current file. And then we want to go into the image folder, and then we want to choose the showcase.jpg. Okay, a single dot would mean we're looking in the current folder. Double is going to mean we want to go outside of the current folder. And then we're just going to add no repeat. Let's do no repeat, and then let's do center. So this is the background position, and then we want it to cover the whole thing as well. So let's save that. Okay. Now, obviously, we want the showcase to be, we want a bigger height than this. So I'm going to set the height to 600 pixels and save. Good. So now you can see that it's the same height. And the reason that when I click over, you see how the links move over and stuff, that's because of the scroll bar right here. There's no scroll bar here because there's no it doesn't go down far enough yet. All right, so now we want to target the showcase content. So I'm going to say ID showcase, and we have a class of showcase dash content. And first of all, I want all the color, anything that's inside of there, I want to be white. Except for the link. The link will have to actually add the color ourselves for that. And then we want to align everything to the center. So we want to do text align center. So if I do that, everything gets aligned to the center. And let's push everything down. So I'm going to do a padding top of 170 pixels. And that pushes everything down. All right, now let's work on the H1. So we'll do showcase content, and then we want to target the H1, and I want that to be bigger, so I'm going to say font size, and let's set it to, we'll do 60 pixels. Okay, so save that, so that's much bigger. Let's do a line height of, let's say 1.2 m, and then let's do padding. Actually, we don't need to do that because we already have the padding bottom on all of the on H1, H2, and H3, so we don't need to add that here. All right, now that's the H1. Let's add the text primary class. So remember, we added the class of text primary. Now we don't want to put like H1 text primary because I want to be able to use this class absolutely anywhere. So it's more of a utility class. So I'm going to put that up here, right under container. All right, so text primary, we're going to use color. And let's see, the color that we want is hexadecimal. It's going to be F7 C0 8A. Okay, so same as the hovered link right here. So if I save that, now only that word enjoy has that color. Okay, let's go back down to showcase and finish that up. So we have the H1. Now the paragraph here, we want the font size to be larger, but remember it has a class of lead. So actually let's add that up top as well. So right under text primary. And let's see, I forget the font size I want for lead. You know what, let's do 18 pixels. Font size 18 pixels. Actually, it looks a little bit bigger than that. Let's do 20. All right, so font size 20 pixels for the lead class. And hopefully you guys understand what I mean by utility classes. I mean that these are just classes that we'll use throughout the site. They're not specific to any specific area. Okay, like it's not specific to the showcase or to the nav bar. We can use them anywhere. So let's go back down now to the showcase, and the showcase paragraph. Let's see. I just want to see if we want to add anything to that. Let's give that some padding bottom actually. So we'll grab this and put in paragraph or P, and let's add padding dash bottom. We'll say 20 pixels. Okay, just to push the button or the link down below. And you know what, let's increase the line height a little bit too here. We'll say line height for the paragraph, let's try 1.5 m. We'll do 7. There we go. All right, so now let's move on to the link here. Now this is going to be another utility class because I want to be able to format links into buttons just by using that BTN class that we added. So we want to go up above here and go right under lead, and let's say .btn, and let's first of all display it as an inline block. So save that. There's going to be no difference just by doing that. But we don't want it to go all the way across like a block, but we also don't want it to be inline. So let's say font size. We'll set that to 18 pixels, make it a little bigger. Let's set the color to white. And let's set the background. Background's going to be 333. Okay, obviously we need some padding here. So for padding, let's do 13 on the top and bottom, and let's do 20 on the left and right, like that. Okay, and then I think the last thing, well, let's make sure that there's no border on any browser. So let's say border none. Because we want to, if we have buttons, we want to be able to add this to the button as well. Okay, and buttons by default have borders. Links don't, but buttons do. Okay, so now when we hover over this, we get a pointer, but again, buttons do not. If you use a button tag, it doesn't, and we want to be able to add this to those as well. So let's make sure we do cursor pointer. And then we want a hover state. We want it to be this color if we hover over it. So let's actually copy this color, this hexadecimal right here from text primary, and let's say btn : hover, and let's set background to that color and set the color of the text to dark and save, and now when we hover over it we get that color. Alright, so that's the showcase. So now let's do the home info section. Okay, so this right here, meaning the image and this part, I'm calling home info, and we want this to be a section. So let's go below the header, and you'll see a common theme throughout my projects. I usually have a header at the top, and then every other part in the page is going to be a section up until the footer. Then we'll use the HTML5 footer tag. So let's do section, and I usually give the sections an ID that describes them. So I'm going to call this home-info. Alright, and as far as naming conventions, I like to use dashes when if I have more than one word inside of an ID or a class, I usually use a dash or a hyphen. Some people will use underscores, okay, or some people will even use none. It's all up to you. Like I said, I like to use dashes. So inside here, let's see, I actually want the background of this whole thing to be dark. And there's other parts of the site where I'm going to want that as well. So actually, I think it's just the foot. Yeah, right here. So this part I want also to have dark. And what I'm going to do is create a utility class called BG Dark. We're going to have different background utility classes. Now, doing stuff like this, you don't have to. I mean, you could just style each individual element, like home info with the background dark, and then when I get to this part, I could target this and put background, whatever, 333, which is the dark gray. Or we can have nice, clean utility classes where if we add on to the website later, if we add more pages, we have that class available to us. It's almost like using a framework, but it's your own framework. So I'm going to add a class of bg-dark. And then inside here, we're going to need these two sections, or two, I shouldn't say sections, but two areas. We have one which is going to be an image, a background image, and then one which is going to be this area with the text. So let's go ahead and add in here a class of info. I'm going to do class of info-img, and then right under that, not within it, but under it, we want to do a class of info-content. Okay, so this is the info-img, this is the info-content. And inside the content, I'm going to use an h2, and I'm going to say actually, let's put a span in here as well. Let's do a span with the class of text primary, because in that span we want the history. So the history, and then outside of the span we'll finish that, we'll say of our hotel. And by the way, I know that this doesn't look that great. It's because this is not responsive. It's somewhat responsive where we use the max width and stuff like that. But later on when we talk about media queries and stuff, we'll get more into building responsive websites. So after the H2, we're going to want this text right here, which I'm not sure. I think it's 40. Lorem 40, but I'm not exactly sure, so I'm going to copy the exact text and I'm going to put it in a paragraph. And you guys have the finished project in the first video of this section as well, if you want to copy anything. All right, then under the paragraph, if I make this bigger, you'll see we actually have a read more. Okay, button here. So let's go ahead and add an A tag. And let's do class BTN. And again, I want to be able to have, we have different buttons. This one's dark, this one's light. So I'm going to have a utility class of BTN light in addition to BTN. Okay, so we want to do that. And then this is just going to go, this will go to the about page as well. It's not a big site, so we don't have too many options here. And that should be it for the home info. So if we save that and go back, I forgot to put text in here. This should say read more. And there we go. All right, now let's start with the button. So notice it has all the traits of this one because they both have the class of BTN. The only difference is I want this one to be light. So we'll go back to our CSS and go up to where we have our BTN class. And right under the BTN class, we're going to do .btn-light. So we have a light version. And we're going to set the background to, let's do hexadecimal F4 3 times. And then set the color of the text to dark. So now if I save that, notice that it gets all the traits of the BTN, meaning the padding, the font size, all that stuff. It just has a different color. Whoops, that should be 333. Okay, there we go. And if we wanted to have a different hover color for the light, we could have, but I'm just going to keep it as is. Okay, so now let's work on floating the image, which we don't even have yet, but we're going to add a background image to this div right here, this info image. We want that floated to the left, and then we want info content to the right. So let's go down below showcase, and let's say home info. So home dash info itself, I'm going to give this a height of 400 pixels, and that should be all we need for home info itself. So for the image, we want to do home dash info, and we want to target the class of info dash img. And let's add, let's see, first of all, let's float it to the left, and we want it half and half. So I'm going to do width 50%. And then let's give it a background of URL. We want to go outside of the CSS folder into image. And then we want the, let's see, we want photo1.jpg. Actually, let's put quotes around this. Okay, and then let's do no repeat. And then we just want to set a min height of 100% because we want the image to take up the whole space. So let's save that. All right, good. So now let's do the content side. So home info, and we want info dash content, and we want to float right. We want to set the width to 50%. I'm going to set the height to 100%. And I want to align everything to the center. So text align to the center. And let's add some padding. So we'll do 50 top and bottom, 30 left and right. And then let's just do overflow hidden. So if anything goes outside of it, there's no scroll bars. And save. Good. Now notice how the background is white because the BG dark class is what's going to handle that, the background color being dark. So let's add that as a utility class. So we're going to go up above here, and let's go right here under the BTN light and do BG dash dark, and let's say background, and we'll set that to 333, and you want to set the color to be light, to be white. Now while we're here, we might as well add some of the other BG classes because I want to be able to do a background light and also a background primary. Now the primary color in this is this tannish color, so I want to be able to have those as backgrounds. So let's copy this and let's do BG light, and let's see, BG light will be F4, but we want to change the color to 333, and then BG primary, just like text primary. Up here we have text primary, except we want the background to be that color, which is right here. Okay, now if I save this, we get this background dark, BG dark. So the last thing I want to do here is the content info, the paragraph. I just want to add a little bit of padding to the bottom because you see how close this is. So I'm going to go back down, copy this, and target the paragraph and just say padding bottom, and let's say 30 pixels. So that'll push it down. And that's it. There we go. So this is starting to look pretty good. And hopefully things aren't too confusing. So we basically just have our header. Our header has our nav bar and the showcase, and then underneath that we have our home info, and then along the way we have some utility classes like text primary, BG primary, BTN, BTN light. Hopefully you can just kind of see how everything's coming together. Okay, so in the next video we're going to work on the 3 boxes below, and we're also going to start to look at Font Awesome, which is a fantastic service, very easy to use. We just have to include a certain style sheet and then use some certain classes, and we can get some nice icons. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.